All right, now we're going to talk about how Mint Mobile's $1.35 billion acquisition can teach you about marketing. So let me set the stage here real quick. Mint Mobile, they call themselves a mobile virtual network operator, okay, whatever you want to call it, that operates actually on the T-Mobile network. Ryan Reynolds, who is also known as Deadpool, I think many of you have seen him on many different movies. He's a movie star, but he was the face of this brand, right? So there's a couple things here that we can learn from it. I just want to set the stage here. And also I'll share a story as well, because one of my EO forum members was actually one of the co-founders of this company. So Neil, you want to kick it off first?
First of all, I don't think Ryan Reynolds created this company. I think
He
he
didn't.
joined and they gave him equity, right?
Correct.
So they gave him like 20, 30% equity or something.
He got
like
300 million is what has been written.
that. 300 million out of the 1.3 billion.
Yep.
That's a amazing deal for him.
And you know what's crazy? I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that's more than what my buddy got out of it. And he co-founded the company.
But you know what? Without Ryan Reynolds, he would have never got that amount.
Yep.
So when you think about Mint Mobile, there's a lot of carriers out there. There was Boost Mobile, Mint Mobile. Anytime you're in a saturated space, you need to figure out a way to stand out. And celebrity endorsements can help you stand out. But here's the thing that most people get wrong with celebrity endorsements. They don't work that well because the celebrity is detached from the brand. They don't really care about it. They're just promoting it because they're getting paid. But on the flip side, the reason Mint Mobile, in my opinion, worked really well, and you've seen this in many cases with some of the Rocks brands, like his energy drinks, Kylie Jenner, her cosmetic company, Ryan Reynolds with Mint. The moment he's owning some of the equity or celebrity owns it and they're vested and they care about the product and they're going to do whatever to really make it popular, that's when it's game changing. Just paying a celebrity or an influencer to push a product does not work the same as having them being a part of the company. And that's a big thing that marketers should take away from Mint.
Yep. The best way to look at this is you have short-termism versus long-termism, right? If you give someone equity, they're more focused on the long term. If you give them cash, a cash payment, I'm not saying a cash payment is bad, but it's more short term. And typically celebrities, for better or worse, celebrities or movie stars, whatever you want to call them, they're typically in it for the short term because so many people just want to give them money. And so they're just like, oh yeah, pay me to be here. Oh, pay me to endorse this, which is why, by the way, on a separate thing, there's a lawsuit going on with a lot of celebrities out there for promoting crypto products, right? So Kim Kardashian got paid, right? I think one of the Pauls got paid as well. And so that's short-termism. And again, it's just a way of doing business, right? But the quote I keep loving to come back to the quote I keep coming back to at the end of the day is the Charlie Munger quote. It is, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. If you align incentives properly, then you're going to be able to get better outcomes. And the other thing is, for Ryan, the way he's actually been pretty involved, not necessarily in the day-to-day of the business, but he's been pretty consistent with pushing Mint Mobile over the years. Because some people sometimes don't just get equity and they're just kind of just back out and be like, and not deliver on what they promised. But he's thought more like a businessman because they bought like a football team in I think in England, right? They're trying to move it up to the Premier League, like the Ted Lasso story. But he's been pretty involved with Mint Mobile, and he's continued to not only build his brand with movies, but he's getting more involved with business deals. So it's also important to think about who you align yourself with, because if you're aligning yourself with a business-focused celebrity, that's going to be better for the long term, because ultimately they have the knowledge and they understand what you're trying to do, versus someone that might be newer in their career that might be blowing up, but because incentives aren't aligned, or they don't necessarily have the knowledge, the business knowledge yet, they might not necessarily help you achieve the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. Now, that's one piece of it with Ryan. The other piece is sometimes it's okay if you're starting a business, it's okay to have the humility, if you're one of the co-founders, to take a smaller chunk of the pie and to understand that, hey, you know what? Again, without Ryan, we're not going to be able to get the outcome that we want. But with Ryan, we're going to be able to get an even better outcome. I appreciate the humility that I have from not only just my friend who's one of the co-founders, but the other co-founders, because I think it's like 4 or 5 co-founders, not even including Ryan Reynolds, and they've done a handful of businesses together. And to see them grow over the years like that, and to maintain that humility, and to be able to work together not only on one business but multiple businesses, there's not many people that do that. And Neil and I know a handful of people that have stuck with each other over the years, and it's always worked out well because there's that trust factor.
Yeah, and don't look at, if you have a celebrity that you're joining in a partnership with and you're giving some equity in the business, don't think about what your ownership is going down to or how much they're going to make from it. More so look at the value of the total pie and look at the value of the dollars you're going to end up getting. So here's a prime example of this. If you own 100% of a company that's worth $1 million, or you own 20% of the company that's worth 10 million, sure, 80% is going to other people, but 20% of 10 million is more than 100% of 1 million. It's 1 million versus 2. Logically, you should take the 2.
Yep, 100%. And we'll use a final example and then we'll get out of here. But you look at Logan Paul and KSI. So they're both continuing to grow their brands, but they're not, it's not only just those two on the Prime drink, it's actually three partners. And I remember when we had like an insider at the Miami Mastermind, he basically spoke about how they did already 250 million in revenue on in a very competitive category, which is drinks. That kind of just validates what Neil said as well. All right, now we're going to talk about how OpenAI has released plugins for ChatGPT and how this is going to affect marketing. So let me set the stage for this real quick and we can go back and forth. But I'm actually reading this came out this week as of this recording. We've implemented initial support for plugins in ChatGPT. And plugins are tools designed specifically for language models with safety as a core principle and help ChatGPT access up-to-date information, run computations, or use third-party services. So an example of this might be, let's say you're using ChatGPT and you want to find a restaurant in your area. Like, what's a really good restaurant that's available today that's Chinese food, that's 5 stars, and has availability at 7 p.m.? And they can sync with OpenTable, and you'll get a chat interface that pops up. Or you can use Instacart as well. There's an Instacart sync over here, and you can order from your favorite grocery stores, or you can use Expedia as well. So the implications of this are not huge just for marketing, but also for business. And we want to talk about this a little bit so you can get ahead of this.
Eric, do you want to give another example of how a normal business can end up using the plugins?
Yeah, I'll give another one. We talked about this on the reaction video yesterday. So Zapier basically interacts with 5,000 different apps like your Google Sheets, Trello, and Gmail, HubSpot. So you can actually pull information directly. You can ask questions, right? Hey, how many leads did we get this week? How many leads are we averaging each day right now? What's the average value of a lead? Like, you can get all those computations now without having to wait and go to finance or wait for an analytics person to come back to you. You're going to be able to move a lot faster, not just from a business perspective, but from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, think of this as a really amazing way to get answers for anything that you're looking for within your organization when you're trying to analyze your marketing. Whether it's your data, your analytics, you're trying to figure out what decisions you should make based on the data. A lot of this can help you. And what's really cool about OpenAI and what they're doing, most marketers just look at it as, oh, it can help me write content. That's a small piece from it. When we were looking at a McKinsey study, there's going to be more money spent on analytics than when it comes to AI than content. At least that's what it's showing right now. Now that could change over time. But imagine if ChatGPT, even if you're not great with analytics, or OpenAI can help you understand what's happening within your data in an organization, and then you can end up going and making better decisions based off of that.
Yeah, let's use this from a marketing perspective, right? So let's say you're running an ad campaign and you want to know, okay, what's the ROAS? Which campaign has the best ROAS? Okay. And which campaign is necessarily, I'm just making sure we're still connected right now. You're still there. Yeah, you're still there. Okay. So which campaign's performing the best? Which campaign is the most inefficient ones? Can you shut that down? And so you're basically going to be able to tell the ad platforms eventually just what to do. And again, the problem right now is the latency, right? So you have to wait for this analysis to be done maybe a couple weeks or so because people are busy. But now you can just have the analysis done immediately. Like, for example, I pay a couple $1,000s for an LTV analysis each year on our clients to figure out how we're trending over time, what we should be spending more on, which channels are working the best. And that takes him a couple weeks to do. But now, if you have the right data, you can plug in your QuickBooks, you can plug in your analytics, you can plug in your ad platforms, you can plug in everything, and you should be able to get it immediately. And you're just going to be able to iterate a lot faster, because what marketing really is at the end of the day, what business is at the end of the day, is just how quickly you're learning and how quickly you're iterating and how you're testing your theories and disproving theories that previously didn't work, right? You're constantly just iterating and building on top. And I think we're going to see a lot more innovation come from businesses and also from marketing.
I want you guys to pay close attention to what Eric just said. He made a key point. You can figure out what's happening in essence in real time and then go and make adjustments from there. See, in marketing, most people wait weeks. When you wait weeks, it actually can hurt your overall profiles, your marketing efforts. A great example of this is, let's say you're trying to analyze what's working for you on LinkedIn and what's not, or Instagram, pick any social network. If you keep posting crap for 2-3 weeks, it actually hurts you when you start posting the stuff they want, because they're used to your audience, your followers not engaging. So when you post stuff that people want to hear about or want to see, they won't see it in most cases, right? Or less of them will end up seeing it. So what you want to do is you can start using OpenAI to figure out what's happening in real time and adjust. This will allow you to get a bigger bang from the buck for your marketing, because you won't be wasting your time and effort on stuff that's not working.
Yep. And here's the thing, like if you're gonna, you could basically ask it, hey, remind me when my creative starts to have ad fatigue, or show me the creatives that are performing really well and remind me. So you can set all these reminders, and then eventually you can just automate everything, right? But I do believe, at least when this stuff first comes out, you're gonna need human beings for the last mile just to make sure that everything looks good to go, and you can't completely just rely on it. So I'm not saying you can autopilot everything out the gate, but I'm saying you're gonna save a lot of time. Eventually you can autopilot everything. That's gonna become big goal. All right, so we're going to talk about the difference between marketing intensity versus strategy and which one is more important. So I'll set the stage for this one, and then we can go back and forth. So strategy, at the end of the day, people talk about strategy. What's the difference between strategy versus tactics? So high level, at least from my opinion, is strategy is the thinking piece, and then the tactics, that's the actual doing piece, right? You need the tactics tied into the strategy, and you need both to move something forward to go ultimately get to your end goal. So that's the strategy piece. But what ends up happening is oftentimes people talk about marketing strategy, what strategy would be using, a brand strategy, this and that. And we spend all this time thinking. But the reality is, what matters, what arguing that what might actually matter more, because I was reading a paper the other day, is that the intensity matters, especially when you're starting a marketing campaign up or you're starting a business up. What matters more is your intensity and how quickly you're pushing, how quickly you're iterating. And so my argument is going to be intensity, and we can elaborate on that. Go ahead, Neil.
Yeah, so think of it as, what are the concepts that you need to work on with your marketing, and how hard do you need, and how hard and fast can you execute on them? I would actually say strategy is really important, but not endless amounts of strategy. So a lot of companies focus on what are the 10, 5, whatever number of best strategies that we should work on. Instead of working on what's the best 10 or 5 strategies, what's the best 1 or 2 strategies that works really well, that for your competitors or other people within your space, and how can you just be super intense on that strategy and go all in? I think if you go all in on 1 or 2 strategies, you're better off focusing your efforts on finding tons and tons of different approaches or strategies. And that's what we see, or at our company, when we're doing consulting at NP Digital, most of the companies that we're working with, they have these 10, 20, 30 strategies that they want to work on, and they lack focus. And if you lack focus and you're not going in hard on the strategies that you know should work, you're not going to get the results, because then you're just spread too thin. And I remember I used to tell Eric this really early on. Eric he still does. He has a ton of books behind him. Reading is great. You should read as much as possible. I spend probably 2-3 hours a day at least reading. But I remember at one point, and Eric has changed quite a bit, and he's evolved so much as an entrepreneur in a great way. He used to continually try to read books, learn new concepts. I don't know if you remember, Eric, just a few years ago, you would always try to find the latest and the greatest. These days, he's more about being operationally efficient, and how can you just execute on what needs to be done, instead of worrying about 10 different things or finding 5 new ideas on how to grow. He focuses on the fundamentals and executing on them.
Yeah, and by the way, so those of you that can see on YouTube, the books behind me, it's funny because Neil and I have debated on the merits of a coach, but that's a separate thing. But I was talking to my coach, and he's like, he's trying to make a point on like how I have so many books behind me and how I've read most of them. I was like, no. I read 5% of the books behind me, because the way I look at the library behind me is it's a reference point. So if I need something, for example, there is a book over there called The Fabric of Reality or something like that I want to read later, because I was listening to a Naval Ravikant podcast. I was like, oh, I want to listen to that broaden my view on philosophy and science and all that, right? And so I might read that later, but I'm only going to pull things that I need and maybe pull a section from it. It's almost like these are all like blog posts in there from the best writers out there, right? So that's one way of looking at it. Now, I digress, but coming back to the intensity and strategy thing first. So you might be saying, okay, I'm not getting enough SEO traffic right now. And the question is, okay, so are you producing enough blog posts right now? Are you reaching out to enough people to build links? Or you might be saying like, hey, I want to be healthier. Okay, what does your diet look like? And how often are you going to the gym? And how often are you lifting weights? And so what matters eventually is not eventually, what matters ultimately is the intensity that you're putting into it. Like if you want to gain more muscle, then go lift more weights, go do more reps, right? If you want to gain more traffic, for the most part, it's content and links, right? And we aren't reaching enough clicks right now. We're not getting enough leads. Okay, so what are you doing to creatively get in front of people? What are you doing to increase your response rate? How many iterations are you going through? It's not just, here's our strategy and it didn't work. It's like, how intense were you with that strategy? How intense were you with the iterations on the tactics? And that's what's ultimately going to drive results, right? It's not just, we came up with this beautiful strategy and here's 10 different strategies with 10 different consultants from all these different big four firms or whatever. That's not going to get you very far. It's like you actually have to do the work.
Yeah. Look, focus on execution. Strategy is important. Pick one or two of the right ones and focus majority of your time on execution. Strategy shouldn't even take up 10% of your time.
Yep. Look, I think even at this stage, Neil's been in business, I think 21 years, right, Neil?
Yeah, 21 years.
All I know is you've been in business 14 years longer than I have. So it's been a long time. Point being is that even at this stage, Neil's got a family, he's got 2 kids. The intensity hasn't really ratcheted down. It's a different kind of intensity from Neil, but it's still there. Same deal for me. Like I still work like how I worked at a startup. Like we had 4-day work weeks. I work 7 days a week, right? I'm not saying that's for everyone, but if there's a certain result that you're trying to hit, then you probably need to ratchet up the intensity. And maybe later in your life, you can ratchet it down and put it up in somewhere else. But that's for another podcast. So that's it for today. Please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. Be honest with the ratings and reviews. And hit us on YouTube as well. Subscribe to us there. And we'll see you later.